Hey, Andrew. Firstly, thank you for joining us today and taking part in this video series that we're putting together looking at AI agents, agentic AI. Let me welcome you to the conversation. How are things for you?
Things are great. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for finding the time. I'm conscious it's early in the morning your time, so we'll crack on through this. So the purpose of this interview is to really get your thoughts from both an industry perspective, also from an RMS perspective. There's been a lot written about agentic AI agents, with the focus being largely the impact on travelers, how they will search and book hotels in the future, and also hotels themselves, how they could look at improving the guest experience, guest journey, even just efficiencies. But not a lot has been discussed about its impact on hotel tech providers like you guys. So that's the angle that we really want to look at, looking at both opportunities and threats that this new technology brings to the table. So being a positive kind of guy, I always want to start with opportunities first, because that seems like the most positive way to take it. So very simply, initial question, what unique opportunities do you see AI agents and agentic AI unlocking for hotel tech providers?
I'd say, it's a great question, and there's a lot of things to your point to where we're talking through, how do we help our customers and how do we get them more efficient, and with a revenue management platform and BI and intelligence platform. There's a lot of things that we can incorporate for the customers that make sense. We've just more recently put in a large language model within our BI, so you can ask questions, which is great from that side. But from on the tech provider side, even simple things like handling RFPs, which would be a pretty heavy lift, especially if they were large RFPs with a big company.
Mm-hmm.
We've been using AI to help us sort those out. We've got our, our standard answers, and we'll go through and get it filled out, and obviously make it bespoke for the individual question and uh, customer. Other than customer service, we're using an AI bot to help us prioritize tickets and
Mm-hmm.
make sure we're lining things up, pulling it into our product team so they can go ahead and identify what things need to be addressed for the biggest asks from customers. So there's a lot of things that are just helping with productivity, our onboarding, pretty much everything. You can involve it in just about everything you do to get more efficient and make your people more productive.
I think I lost you there, but I think your last point was make your people more productive. Yeah.
Make our other people more productive. Yes.
Perfect. And you mentioned that you'd recently introduced LLM into your business intelligence. Where do you see AI agents, agentic AI, coming into the actual technology itself, and how that's going to, from your perspective,
Yeah.
help your clients?
Well, I mean, from the revenue management solution and platform that we have, it is, it does the pricing. It will do your restrictions. It will, and that's a big part of a lot of revenue management platforms. They probably for the hotel industry, it's the one area where machine learning has been involved for years and years and years.
Hmm.
The difference, what I think now, especially a newer company like us, have only been around for 9 years. We're AI from the ground up. So the way
Yeah.
I like to uh, position it as, when we had the desktop app and everyone moved to mobile, at first you just bolted things on for mobile, like, oh, okay. Then you went to responsive design and it was mobile first, and it all worked. Really, where a lot of the industry is, and I think that's where tech providers need to understand: can they continue to just bolt AI on top, or do they need to re-platform the entire system? We had to
Well, that's
do
a
that
very
with
good
mobile.
question.
We had to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
re-platform the entire time. So we AI blew up around 2016. We came at AI first. We're AI from the ground up.
Right. Interesting.
So it's not bolted on. It's just part of what we do. We were fortunate that when ChatGPT launched, everyone started talking about AI. But obviously, it's more than just the large language models.
No, well, I know you guys. I mean, obviously, FLYR Hospitality, but formerly was Pace before that, and I know Jens and the guys there,
Mhm.
and they came from a very different background, and that whole data and AI was a massive part of where they came from. So it was almost very much ahead of the curve in that sense. So I was interested when you say it was built almost AI first from the ground up, almost anticipating the direction of travel of where this was going to go.
Well, that was the opportunity, and then that's what we, Jens and the team saw when they started the company, that not much had changed in the hotel tech space. So whether that's PMS, CRS, RMS, over time, we're dealing with some of the same basic algorithms in the RMSs that have been around for since I started.
Hmm.
2 years of history, 12-week trends, and they bolted things on top of it over the years, and they've added additional AI, but there's a better way to do that now. And you couldn't with the computing processing
No,
power that
that's
was
a fair
available
point.
at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
And when it was on-prem and all the things that, it was as big as your server and how fast it. Now with cloud computing and everything else, we can get unlimited data. We can, process it very, very quickly. We pull data 48 times a day, optimize 24 times a day,
wow.
which was unheard of. You couldn't do that before.
No, no.
We want to get to real time, and we're getting there slowly but surely. But that's just light years ahead of where the industry was, even 10 years ago. So, I think AI will, with the additional data and trying to manage it, you need to put in, artificial intelligence because you just can't
You
can't
can't cope
handle
with
it
that
all.
volume. Yeah, and you're right. The cloud computing really kind of switched it and enabled it to be turbocharged and actually powered to what it needed to do. It couldn't be
Yeah,
achieved up until that point, really, could it?
right.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Let's flip the coin. Let's go from the
Sure.
positives to, or from opportunities to threats. And again, just narrowing this down for the time being and focusing on the hotel technology providers. So, what do you feel are some of the most pressing threats that agentic AI agents could pose to the existing hotel tech companies and landscape as we see it?
Well, I think we obviously have to respond to our customers. And I think the impact on customers and our customers are the hotels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, how they manage it, what type of capabilities they have. It's a very, very uh, diverse and disparate skill sets at the hotel level. So you've got some major corporations that can handle things really well, and you still have the mom and pop who has been doing it, let's say, for 30 years, and they're just like, no, we change our rates, once a month.
Hmm.
Um, so there's the skill set gap. We've got to be able to make sure that our technology uh, can handle all of those things. And I think from a tech provider standpoint, how do you move into and make sure your technology is flexible enough to use all the new tools, but then also making sure that it's intuitive enough for people to use it. It doesn't become a black box. Um, there's a lot of threats there, and that's, I think, if it become too complex, and you get people that are turned off by it. Where like, why is it doing this? To the point where we're actually working on a project where the system will tell you what it's doing. Like,
Hmm.
why did it price X on a Tuesday night?
Hmm.
To try to bring our customers along. And I think the threat is the technology gets too advanced, and you lose your customer along the way, and they don't fully understand it, don't trust it.
That makes a lot of sense. Where do you feel, and we may touch on this again in another question I've got a little later on, but just of interest as to when you see people talking about, I can get Chat GPT to code for me and I can build my own. We're talking to one of our partners and they were given the challenge of building their own bot, and it sort of took them 6 to 8 hours to get their head around it and do it. But they reckon next time round, it might take them just an hour or so. Is there, do you see there's a potential risk to actual players in the industry at the moment of hoteliers doing their own thing? I mean, what about the major players, for instance? If we look at that, could you see them leveraging their consolidated data and actually build proprietary AI agents?
Look, we've had this issue all the time where someone's cousin builds a PMS in their garage and they put it in because how hard could a PMS be, or
Hmm.
whatever. So that's always been an issue for the industry. I worked at IHG for many years, and we had a lot of people in technology, but we weren't a technology company.
Hmm.
And I think we got to recognize that. And then since I think they've built out their own, they had a proprietary CRS. They've gone with Amadeus now, which isn't a secret. I mean, we've done that years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
But I think you see that with Marriott as well. Same proprietary CRS. They've gone to Amadeus. I think even the bigger players are starting to recognize that we just don't have the bandwidth. And I've was chief commercial officer for several brands. Um, it's I had some great teams and I ran some revenue management systems, but I didn't have the horsepower. I mean, just
hmm.
just my company alone, our chief data scientist, David Lopez, he worked 10 years on the CERN super collider, in the Higgs
Yeah,
boson particle.
yeah.
And I mean, it's the horsepower, this is what we do. And understanding having a team of 20 25 people in data science that are doing this day in, day out. Even the big brands don't have that many, but
Yeah.
because it's core, it's what we do. There'll always be a hotel that says, no, I can just build a revenue management system out there. And they will, and it might work, but are they going to get the results? And I think as we start going in real time revenue management, as we start getting down to a segmentation of one, knowing and getting all that data in and knowing so much about you personally that we're able to give you the right offers that really resonate with you and increase conversion, that you just won't be able to handle that.
Hmm.
We revenue management example, I used to do it on an Excel spreadsheet. This
Yeah.
isn't my brace. You can't do that
Can't
anymore.
do
It's
that
just
now.
not gonna. Well, you can. The thing is, you can. You're just not
Yeah,
going to be
you're
a
not going to be
win.
very good at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, just picking up on that, and looking from the other side of the equation, from the looking at the hotel tech companies, and how maybe as the because I guess where the question comes from is that 2 years ago nobody really knew about ChatGPT. ChatGPT arrives on the scene. Suddenly, everybody leans into it. Everybody's now talking about AI. As you said, you guys years ago were talking about AI, and you'd see people glaze over as you were trying to explain it. Now their senses have been heightened to it. We're more aware of it. It's more mainstream. So I guess I'm wondering if there may be core products that just the complexity of what they need to do will require an external provider. But if you're looking at some of these solutions where if you just want a simple pricing, you don't need the complexity that maybe FLYR bring. You just want some simple pricing to stop doing it in an Excel spreadsheet. You know, could agents take away that part of the business, and those people that those providers that lean into that end of the solution, chatbots for instance, is that something that people could easily look to put together? Is it opening space for new entrants into the market, who maybe haven't been in the hotel space before but are looking to come into the hotel space? If we look back 2 years ago and think what everyone was doing with ChatGPT, well, we didn't know anything about it. If now we know a little
Right.
bit more about these AI agents, and we fast forward 2-3 years and the pace of adoption and development, it's kind of what might the hotel tech landscape look like at that point?
I think it will change. The one, positive and negative, and especially since we do have both airlines and hotels and on the hotel side specifically, hotels are complex. And with three entities typically in every asset, you've got the brand, you've got the owner, you've got the manager.
Yep.
Everyone says, "Oh, well, I'll just go into hotel space. It'll be really easy. It's great, and they'll go ahead and sign up because I have this great thing." You still have to understand the fundamental nature of the business, whether the owner believes it's a real estate play or they're actually in the hospitality business, and how they're approaching it, and what brand they have on, and what flexibility you have with the brand. There, all those things come into play. So, I think it will create new entrants. I think they'll
Sure.
be only as successful as they somewhat bend to realities on the ground in the hotel business. The fundamental structures of the business aren't going to change. They're not going to be one person, and there's a couple like Omni where there's one person who owns the brand, the managements, and
Hmm.
the assets. But for the most part, the structure isn't going to change, and you're still going to have to deal with that reality. And then the context of that, how do you put in technology to make sure everyone's happy with some competing priorities? And you've got to understand that. So, yes, there will be new players. Um, I think there'll be some successful new players. We're a new player, even though we're around 9 years, right?
Yeah.
But we're finally, I think, getting a tremendous amount of traction and growth because we've started, as a company, begun to understand what do we really need to do to manage all those three different entities in every asset, and
Mhm.
starting to get real traction with it.
No, that makes sense. We've seen some consolidation. It's likely to continue, I would guess. What's your take on it? Do you see, as we go forward, do we see maybe a divide occurring where you have maybe half a dozen major tech providers with a single data source and various different solutions operating, that classic one-stop shop, and then the separation maybe of some best in breed single solutions that obviously can connect via APIs as they do at the moment. What's your take on that?
And yeah, I think there'll always be, if everything consolidates, there'll be a whole bunch of new startups that happen.
it's a
Um,
it's a
yeah,
cycle we go through, isn't it?
it is. It's very, very difficult for the big companies to have best in breed in all products.
Hmm.
It's very, very tempting to say, look, I have one platform, one person to talk to. Is typically more expensive because you're dealing with bigger companies who like to
Okay.
charge premiums.
Hmm.
And the hotel industry, while we do have a lot of big hotels and big brands, there's also a tremendous amount of independence to solve my little solution. So I think there'll always be uh, a pretty diverse landscape out there. I think it'll be consolidation, but I think it'll just bring up new players who will start.
That makes sense. Um, Putting a different hat on and looking at it from a hotelier side, as you say, we kind of have the manager, we have the owner, you may have the brand, or if it's independence, could be owner, investor, manager. Um, if I'm sitting there running the hotel, whatever structure is above me, I'm likely having various meetings where this topic is coming up. I'm probably getting some pressure, or you can interpret it whichever way you like, to be saying, "Come on, what are we doing about AI agents? How are we getting involved with that?" What, from my side, I see some obvious barriers that still exist that have been spoken about for a number of years, specifically around data. Um, but what would you be advising hoteliers to be cautious about when considering using AI and leaning into this new technology?
Yeah, I mean, it's hoteliers typically value and engineer their tech stack, so they
Mhm.
don't. They'll sometimes select the price over the functionality, which I think is probably a detriment in the long run. So I would make sure that it's a cohesive strategy. They don't do things piecemeal. Even you don't have to do it with the same company, but make sure that all the pieces fit together.
Mhm.
There's a cohesive data strategy behind the back end of it, and you can utilize the data. Things like RBI, plugs in. I can utilize all the data, which is I think very, very helpful. So um, those things are extremely important, but also it's going to be hard. Hoteliers, for the most part, and not the big companies with people in tech, but
Sure.
they don't know, and everyone's saying I have AI and I have this, and is it AI first, or is it bolted on AI, and is it
Yeah.
going to last you? Because they don't change out systems very often. So is it going to last you 5 years?
Hmm.
Most companies want to last 10 or 15 years, which is insane. You wouldn't keep your cell phone for 10
Three,
years, but
whatever.
um, but that, the pace of change, hopefully it does speed up and there's more investment in it, because I think it will help drive returns,
Hmm.
which is ultimately what the owners want. Um, but they've got to make sure that whatever they're doing is sort of trying to future proof it as much as they can, because they're not going to change it out no matter how much we want them to. So are they dealing with technology that might not be bleeding edge, but new enough that it will, serve their purposes for another 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, some good points. One of the one of the questions I had, and you will know this much better than I will. I just see it with conversations I have and reading about it. But some people say, the way that the data is held in different solutions is pretty fragmented. I read some articles which say, okay, well, that's where AI agents will be able to help because they can look at this and pull it together. Others are saying, well, no, you need a single source, clean, consolidated, well structured, non-fragmented. What's your take? Because obviously you're looking at it from your solution. You're looking at data coming in that you need to do your job, but there's a lot more data that exists within the hotel. What's your kind of view on the direction of travel and the importance for hotels of their data set that they're utilizing?
Well, I mean, they need to have a full data strategy and a data lake, and you can normalize that. And we use AI, and our business intelligence is probably the best example that I have on what we do. We take in data from other player, Lighthouse, and Rate Gain, and STR, so, CoStar, and pull all this stuff in, uh, and allow the people to, our hotels and customers to take it and change it around and manipulate. We try to get it down to a super granular level, and we map it. Even if a customer has multiple PMSs, we can map it into the data lake and
Okay.
pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reality is it's going to be fragmented. It's how do you handle it? How do you map it and spend the time with that? We use AI to help map things out,
Yeah.
and configure it. And then, how do you get access to it? So, right now, most people are putting in a data lake, then they'll have Power BI or Tableau. They need SQL writers to go ahead and pull the elements out. Most companies can't, hotels can't
Yeah.
do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is where, ours doesn't, and we're not the only ones, but you can select the elements, you can ask it, and it will go and write the SQL code and pull it directly out of the data lake and pull it into the thing. So you skip that step, which is probably the hardest step for the hotels to do.
Yeah.
That type of technology is going to continue to grow, where you can just, and right now we can ask, what's my performance next month? What's my performance for this ownership group for next quarter? They're coming in next week. And get the relevant data back literally in 45 to 60 seconds, where that would have taken 2 to 3 hours if you had a team to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Where do things like data compliance, obviously over in the UK and in Europe, we've got GDPR. I know California have something similar to that. So data compliance, but then also data security. We're seeing a lot more
Yeah.
about, systems being hacked. And the more in my mind, I kind of think, well, the more that data gets pulled together into a central source, and the more we have things accessing it, it feels as if that's ripe for people to try and break in and access that. What's your thoughts on compliance and security?
Well, let me start with security. Security, obviously, paramount. You've got to protect your customers' data, and cloud-based, working with whether it's Google or AWS or whatever. If it's sitting there, and it's you would hope that some of the biggest companies and best companies in the world would have some of the great security around. If they can't, if AWS can't stop a hack, then
No one
most
can.
companies can't, right?
No.
So obviously, you've got to take it very, very into consideration. For the customer data, we've currently steered clear of that, because it is challenging. We'll have some city, we know where the reservation from, what city they came in from, but we're not keeping any personal data
Mhm.
in the system. I think we will need to, at some point, as you create a full commercial platform, you're going to want to understand down to a segmentation of one, what I mentioned before. So I'm going to want some personal data so I can go ahead and link up my revenue management recommendations with my marketing stack, with
Mhm.
my sales stack, and really get those offers in front of the customers at the right time.
Yeah.
So it's super important. You have to make sure you take care of your customers' privacy. even regardless of the laws, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just the right thing to do. So um, there's going to be more and more about this, and I think there'll also be some standardization. It won't be as piecemeal. The ones in the U.S. right now, I think hopefully the federal government gives us some rules. GDPR is definitely giving us rules for EU, and of course, everything's slightly different, so you got to incorporate them all.
Yeah.
But it's going to be continue to be a big focus.
And final question, conscious of your time, so we'll look to wrap this up. The reason that we wanted to do this series of interviews now is not only because the topic is so so front and center in everything that we read, but also it is the point in time when hoteliers will start to have an early look at their budgets and start to consider what is happening, what they may be doing in 2026. So we thought it would probably help to get this out and give some context of direction, because with all this noise, it can be confusing, it can be frustrating, it can be a distraction as well. So we thought having a little bit of clarity and some thoughts may help to dispel some of that uncertainty that may exist. But what would you be advising if I could put you in a room with a bunch of hoteliers and their one question is, okay, Andrew, I'm starting to think through my tech budget for 2026. What should I be considering, especially with all this AI hype that's going on?
I think you've got to be really deliberate. You should understand, and this is going to be hard for owners, that your technology costs are going to go up. You're going to need to invest more in technology. I think there's benefits on labor productivity, on revenue generation, on a lot of other things that will, the ROI will be there, but there's going to be more upfront capital costs that they just need to plan for. An example that was with an owner, this is several years ago, but we're like, we got to change out the Wi-Fi modules and I was like, well, the hotel's only 8 years old. Like, I'm due for no, you got to do that every year. Like, we're well where we change these things out. And they'll say, well, my F&E in the room is good for 10 years. It's different, and I think technology is different. And if you continue to get behind on it, it's going to be hard to catch up. I love using a cell phone thing. Most people don't keep a cell phones for more than 3 years. Now, of course, I'll walk into an owner's office and they'll say, "Here's my iPhone 6." And it works just fine. That's few and far
you'll always
between.
get a few.
That
Yeah,
if
most
you really
people.
want to,
Yeah.
They've got a plan for it, and I think they need to be really cognizant that if they're not going to do it, someone will do it for them, either competitors or the online travel agents, or someone's going to come in and do this and basically take the revenue upside and take the profit upside from them if they don't invest in it. So they can either basically pay now or they're going to pay later.
In a different way.
But I'd much rather, if I were them, have control over it and make sure that I'm building the right thing for the business and the asset value.
No, that's some good advice. And on that note, I think that wraps up the questions that we wanted, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing those thoughts. Really valued.